Hello. From Wikipedia. Deductive reasoning is the mental process of drawing deductive inferences. An inference is deductively valid if its conclusion follows logically from its premises, i.e., it is impossible for the premises to be true and the conclusion to be false. For example, the inference from the premises all men are mortal and Socrates is a man to the conclusion Socrates is mortal is deductively valid. Inductive reasoning is a method of reasoning in which a general principle is derived from a body of observations. It consists of making broad generalizations based on specific observations. Inductive reasoning is distinct from deductive reasoning, where the conclusion of a deductive argument is certain given the premises are correct. In contrast, the truth of the conclusion of an inductive argument is probable, based upon the evidence given. So its opposite for induction. Socrates has died, Socrates was man, therefore all men will die. Deduction is used in logic and mathematics. The symbol that I use sometimes in videos is associated with deductive reasoning. At the same time, inductive reasoning does not give you any strict logic. There is even no any symbol associated with inductive reasoning as far as I know. I will use the symbol that is displayed on the screen for it. It is widely believed that science uses inductive reasoning. I'm going to demonstrate that it's not true. Our modern scientists say that scientific revolution, which has happened in 16th-17th centuries, started because scientists switched from deductive to inductive reasoning. Until that, observational data was not taken into account the way it's taken into account now. Since Aristotle, it was believed that only logic can give us real knowledge. It was believed that our senses are not reliable, because humans are biased and often choose to believe whatever they wish to believe. Modern scientists say that deductive reasoning did not let humans advance in the understanding of nature much. So it is believed now that scientists of 16th-17th centuries started to use inductive reasoning instead. Launching experiments, making conclusions from observations let humans build the laws of nature as we know them today. Therefore it's believed these days that inductive reasoning is the only reasoning that means anything for science. I'm sure all of you have heard that to make any conclusions one needs evidence. It's accepted as fact today. But actually Copernicus, who is believed to have started the revolution, built his heliocentric model not based on observations, but based on data taken from geocentric Ptolemy model. He relied on arguments about what would be a more complete and elegant system, not on evidence. In other words, he relied on logic and simplicity. Evidence was against him. Predictions of his theory were worse than predictions of Ptolemy model. And actually Ptolemy had his model built more than 1,000 years before Copernicus. And it was based on observations. So was Ptolemy the one who started the inductive reasoning revolution? Ptolemy used observations and induction. Copernicus used elegance and logic. Even though Isaac Newton famously said hypotheses non fingo, which means I contrive no hypotheses, and even though he believed in induction, he definitely used at least one hypothesis. Hypothesis that our universe can be described by mathematics, which is not necessarily true in general case. For example, for Conway's game of life you cannot use any calculus. Also Newton created calculus without using any observations or induction. Logic, deduction were used for that. And then he used calculus created with the help of logic to describe the world. So he definitely used a hypothesis that our world is logical. Somehow modern science managed to ignore the fact that calculus and mathematics in general are based on an assumption that logic and deduction do work. Inductive reasoning works like this: scientists investigate physical phenomena and build their mathematical models. After those models were built for every phenomena, they are synthesized into larger and larger models. As a result, modern theories like quantum mechanics and general relativity were built. There is one problem. Those theories contradict each other. I assume it happens because those theories were built independently through sequences of guesses. Some of those guesses could appear to be wrong. And that is the reason why there are contradictions. It can be compared to doing a crossword puzzle. If two persons are independently doing left and right part of a crossword puzzle and there are some errors, they will have problems joining them. But as a scientist you are allowed to say that you have done the left and the right part of a puzzle, and contradictions are not contradictions, but just limitations of current theories. Left part is solved, right part is solved, and someday we will discover a new theory that will let us join those parts without changing any of them. Maybe several dimensions will need to be added for that. Maybe we should try to fix the errors instead. I thought that should be obvious. But not for modern science. For modern science, quantum mechanics and general relativity are the best theories we ever had. You just do not understand, they say. Those theories are confirmed by every experiment they ever choose to launch. And therefore they are both true. Anyway, what we call inductive reasoning is not even reasoning. As I've told earlier, there is no inductive reasoning in logic. There is even no symbol for inductive reasoning. Even when you claim that your theory is based on evidence and induction, it's not true if we speak about scientific method. According to scientific method, observations are used only to make a guess, which postulates, which model to choose. Those postulates are used to make deductive conclusions and build predictions that can be tested in experiment. Observations and existing knowledge only provide input data for humans' internal idea generator. They are only hints. Nothing more. Science equals guess plus deduction plus experiment plus analysis. No any induction. No any evidence. There is no any evidence that parallel lines exist. But we still use them. Huge amount of people truly believe that inductive reasoning proves something. Many people truly believe that postulates of special relativity follow from special relativity. Many people truly believe that postulates of quantum mechanics follow from quantum mechanics. No. Postulates of special relativity do not follow from special relativity. You cannot say that speed of light is constant because predictions of special relativity work. It's opposite. There is special relativity because we assumed that speed of light is constant. But we can use different postulates and build special relativity or some other similar theory based on them. No. Postulates of quantum mechanics do not follow from quantum mechanics. You cannot say that Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is the true nature of universe because predictions of quantum mechanics work. It's opposite. There is quantum mechanics because there are postulates of quantum mechanics. But we can use different postulates and build quantum mechanics or quantum electrodynamics or some other similar theory based on them. Another problem is that inductive reasoning turns science into continuous measurement. As if science is measurement. But I will review that in a separate video. No, science is not measurement. Science is a process of guessing and testing. Huge amount of information on different physical phenomena is available to anybody these days. You don't necessarily need to measure anything yourself. You can just use existing data just as Copernicus did. Therefore anybody can try to guess how universe really works. Just as Copernicus did. Anybody can try to rely on logic and simplicity just as Copernicus did. Anybody can try to start another revolution and replace modern epicycles with real knowledge. Just as Copernicus did. All we need is a good guess. So what exactly do I propose? I propose to try to build knowledge using one base assumption and deductive reasoning. My specific assumption sounds like this: what if our universe is a huge robot? I've partially described that assumption in one of my previous videos. Link to that video is in the upper right corner now. I'm describing how that assumption explains our reality in other videos on this channel. How have I got that assumption? Of course the same way as everybody, through a sequence of guesses. Details will be provided in a separate video, but in short the last step was connected with the first Newton's law. I was trying to guess the algorithm that could cause inertia. I have a video about inertia. Link to that video is in the upper right corner now. In general it's not important how exactly I've got this assumption, it's more important what we can do with it. Is my assumption disprovable? Yes, but only partially. I've shown how to try to disprove it in the first video on this channel. Why it's disprovable only partially? Because I describe only general structure of elementary particles, space, time, and only general idea of how interaction might work. Exact rules of matter interaction are not part of these explanations. There can be different rules of matter interaction and they will cause different world models. Each of those models would be disprovable, but not all of them together. Because I can always say that maybe we should try some other rules of interaction. But whatever algorithm of interaction is, absolute space and time, locality are still required. And those can be investigated and tested. Here are some examples of a deductive reasoning that I propose to use. If absolute time and absolute space exist, then special relativity cannot work the way it's currently believed to work. The first video on this channel proposes alternative postulates for special relativity. It includes predictions that can be checked in experiment. If universe is a huge robot, then particle cannot be any kind of wave or field, it has to be some kind of machine. In that case the double-slit experiment has to be caused by interaction of the photon with the matter emitted by slit edges. I had a video on that. That video includes working model and predictions that can be checked. Link to that video is in the upper right corner now. If universe is a huge robot, then space cannot expand or warp. Therefore explanations are needed for cosmological redshift and for gravity. Explanation for cosmological redshift was provided in one of my previous videos. With some evidence. Link to that video is in the upper right corner now. Possible mechanisms for gravity will be provided in one of my future videos. And so on. Initial assumption, postulate, axiom that was chosen limits the possible answers to the next questions, and that's how logic and deduction work. If some phenomena cannot be explained within the model, then something is wrong with the initial assumption. As you can see, my claims are unusual enough. So unusual that the most common feedback I can get so far is something like this. When the majority of people don't share your opinion, it's not that they are all wrong. The likelihood is that your opinion might actually be wrong. The lone genius myth is just that, a myth. For the first, I should mention that when you blindly repeat textbooks, you are not having an opinion, you are repeating textbooks. If repeating textbooks considered as an opinion, then we would have to agree that ChatGPT has an opinion. And ChatGPT has the best opinion on earth, as its opinion consists of huge amount of textbooks that no human will ever remember. When we say opinion, we actually mean a judgment, a viewpoint. Something personal. A textbook is definitely not personal if you are not the author of that textbook. For the second, I'm definitely not a genius. I believe that progress is about dedication and luck, not about being genius. Actually, I had a video on that. It shows that partially irrational beings explore maze faster than fully rational ones. In short, when you explore the unknown, you just can't know when it is right time to be rational. Link to that video is in the upper right corner now. Regarding the likelihood. Progress is not something that is likely to happen. Progress is something that happens despite the likelihood. If we really want to have some progress, we should not rely on the likelihood. You will never create anything new if you always do what it is most likely to do. And finally, I hope that at least someday I will not be alone. I hope there will be other humans who can appreciate the elegance and the simplicity of the model. There are 32 videos on this channel already. Relativity might have been disproved. New phenomenon might have been demonstrated. Bell inequalities might have been explained. I would say that's definitely something. The work to be done is huge. Wavelength, gravity, atoms, matter interaction, evolution, human. Experiments need to be launched. All of that sounds crazy, I know. But there are too many coincidences. And it's too simple to be wrong.
And finally, I would like to say, One of the most important things in this guess, compute, consequences, compare, experiment business is to know when you're right. It is possible to know when you're right way ahead of computing all the consequences. Of checking all the consequences. You can recognize truth by a beauty and simplicity. It's always easy when you've got the right guess and make 2 or 3 little calculations to make sure it isn't obviously wrong, to know that it's right. When you get it right, it's obvious that it's right, at least if you have any experience. Because what happens is that more comes out than goes in. That your guess is, in fact, that something is very simple. And at the moment you guess that it's simpler than you thought, then it turns out that it's right, if it can't be immediately disproved. Doesn't sound silly. If you can't see immediately that it's wrong and it's simpler than it was before, then it's right.
Another revolution is coming. You can choose to be a part of that revolution, or you can choose to ask what is your evidence and to not listen to any answers. The world will not change on its own. Somebody has to change it. Even though the majority of inspirational stories are only fairy tales, some of them are true. If you would like to support my work, you are welcome. Link to the Buy Me a Coffee account is in the description. With your support I will be able to spend more time for this. The great scientific revolution took more than 100 years. Let's not wait that much. Thank you for your attention.